Welcome to WEHM All Access, the podcast where we bring you in-depth conversations with the people shaping life right here on Eastern Long Island. Now, every episode, we're going to dive into the stories, the music, and the voices that define our community, from local leaders to the musicians you know and love. And throughout the summer, we're catching up with many of the performers taking the stage at the Great South Bay Music Festival, getting the inside scoop on their music, their journey, and what they're bringing to Patchogue this year. On this episode of WEHM All Access, drummer Russ Lawton joins us for a deeper look at LaMP's evolution, from their first night playing together in Burlington, Vermont, to the collaborative file trading process that shapes their sound today. Russ reflects on his years in Woodstock, the musicians who influenced his approach, and how LaMP's material comes together both in the studio and on the stage. We discuss the new record next year and what the band is preparing for their main stage appearance at the Great South Bay Music Festival. Let's start with Russ Lawton from LaMP. It's WEHM's All Access. It's EHM All Access for the Great South Bay Music Festival, and coming Saturday, July 25th, Russ, Scott, and Ray make up LaMP, and Russ Lawton joining us right now in our kind of virtual studio. Russ, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Very good. Thank you for doing this. I know you're about to hit the road for some shows, including that Saturday set at the Great South Bay Music Festival, and I guess I kind of wanted to sit down and get to know you a bit, learn about the project, and I've read on your website that the band formed after a magical night at Nectar's in Burlington, and that was back in December of 2018. What do you remember about that first show, and what kind of about that said, hey, this is something we can kind of build upon?
Well, Ray and I had been playing together for years with Trey, and then also we had a band, we still have a band, Solely Monday. And we got together with Scott, and a lot of people came out, and we shared songs, some of the Solely Monday songs, and he had some of the songs from his band Wolf, and we did a long sound check, and it was sounding really great, and the gig went really good. And both Ray and I were like, damn, this guy's a very tasteful guitar player and a good guy too. So from there, we're like, we should keep doing this. And then, from there we were trading files. Like I write drum beats, and Ray writes songs, and we just traded because he's in Brooklyn, and Ray and I live right in Middlebury, so he's like 10 minutes from here, so it's very easy for us to get together. So we just traded, the old trading files, and Scott was coming up with some great stuff from the drum beats, and Ray does that too, and it's like, wow, let's make it a record. So we did this record in like a day and a half, and it still holds up. The first LaMP record.
How did you decide? I know the name combines your names, but how did you kind of decide that together? Was it immediate? To kind of take some time to figure that out?
Yeah, it was just like, okay, let's try this, and it's like, LaMP, lump. No, that ain't gonna work, or whatever. It's like that seemed to be the best, because names of things is always can be a little. You can go either way, but it worked,
You mentioned the debut record. I believe it was recorded at a place called Sugar House Soundworks.
Yes.
How'd you choose the studio? Was it just made sense, or what role did that studio kind of play in putting this record together?
Well, it was our friend Roger, and unfortunately that studio's gone now.
Oh man!
But he took all the gear, and he's at his house, and we have yet another record coming out in this fall, and we did it at his house with all the same gear. But it's our friend Roger, and I've been recording. When I moved back up here, I met him, and he hires me to play on records and stuff. And great guy, great engineer, and he gets a killer sound. And so we did it there, and for us, it was like we lived up here, so Scott, was gracious enough to come up and do it here, and it really worked.
You mentioned kind of trading files back and forth, different grooves, and what is the typical writing process? Do you start with the music, the lyric? How does it work?
Well, yes, I mean, some of it it's really wide open, but like a lot of times I'm over here working on just practicing, and I'll get it some beats, and I'll send it to them, and they work right around the beat. Or sometimes Ray has a core of an idea. We build from there, maybe add or subtract or whatever. It's a chipping away process, It's pretty exciting, especially for me as a drummer. I mean, I write like these rock songs under my own name. And I've always done that with bands that were more like vocal bands. But with this, it's instrumental. But to have stuff that I've done, beats turn into songs is really great, because you're trying to come up with some different grooves and things,
LaMP is
So
on
it's
the main stage at the Great South Bay Music Festival, Saturday, July 25th. What's it like to put together the set? Because I'd imagine it's a little shorter than average shows. And how do you kind of sit down with the band and plot that out?
Yeah, well, that's what we say, the greatest hits. You know what I mean? Not that we have like hit
Yeah,
songs, but
no.
but it's like definitely for me, like, okay, there's some core ones from the first album. There's the core songs from each album, the two albums, and then some of the covers that we play, we'll throw in that, like we have the song Some Days, we'll play that definitely out of curiosity, and then there's whatever. It's sometimes it's pretty obvious. And I save like all the songs in my phone and I jumble them all together. And, Scott and I look at them and, you know, what's a good set closer, or you feel it out what kind of festival it is or something. But looks like it's going to be some heavy hitters in there. So we'll come up with something. I know. I forget what even the set. Yeah, if it's like 90 minutes or 70 minutes, you can get like maybe 12 songs or something. So you're gonna what's the 12 top songs we want to play?
I've read, and there's been in the news lately, but at Levon Helm Studios, you guys have played rooms like that. What's it like for you to play certain types of rooms that have such a history?
Oh man, that room is. I was living in Woodstock when he was just building that, and that was the talk of the town that he was building the studio. And the band had just broken up, stopped playing, and then that was like Levon's building this barn, And then over the years, they started doing the rambles. So for me, I have a little bit of history from living there, but it's pretty emotional actually. It's pretty.
I would imagine. What was it like growing up or living there? And I'd imagine you were involved with a whole bunch of different projects musically there.
Yeah, I moved there to go to this place called the Creative Music Studio. It was like a school. I never ended up going because I ended up getting involved in a band in Vermont, but I was there for a year. But oddly enough, I got a job working at this place called the Beer Cafe that Albert Grossman owned, who was Bob Dylan's manager and all. He was like a big in the band. It was his building, but these other people ran this restaurant. But all the rock stars would come in. I would see Paul Butterfield every day if he wasn't on tour. I would just meet so many people. And it was Todd Rundgren. I remember hanging out with Todd Rundgren, talking to him about like chicken soup in the kitchen or something, or Eddie Offord, who was like Yes's producer. And I was like 21 years old. I was like starstruck, like, whoa. And I did play a lot of music when I was there too, not with those guys. Although during one time I was doing a pickup gig downtown Woodstock, and Harvey Brooks, who played on Miles Davis' Bitches Brew, was the bass player. And I was like, whoa, I'm over my head, but and it was just incredible. I saw so much music. There was this place, the Joyous Lake. It was just easy because it was just right there. I lived up on the mountain.
Oh my gosh. I imagine, and those experiences have really formed you, and I'm sure influenced this band to this day. I know you're working on another record for them, and I think I read it's planned for early next year. What direction do you guys want to take the band in for this new material?
Well, again, too, it's all based about, we trade in files again. Just some stuff has gone in a little bit direction, kind of a little more rock, like low and threatening notes kind of a thing, which I really like, if that makes sense. Or, it's just, again, too, it's all the whole spectrum, we got one, and it's just whatever feels good.
Did it take time? Because you mentioned it, and it sounds like for this project, it was kind of from the start, but as far as sending files and using in different places, did it take a while to get used to that instead of just being in a room with the guys playing music?
To a certain extent, yeah. I mean, because Ray and I live close. In other bands, I was in Boston for 20 years, so we would rehearse a lot, because we were right there. We had rehearsal spaces in downtown Boston or whatever. But it was different. But this day and age, you do what you got to do. And it's working, too, which is really cool. But I do admit, when I go up to Ray's and we hash out stuff, it definitely, that's the best. As the two of us, we work well together that way, too. What's immediate reaction, like, what was that? Do that again, But we do that with LaMP at sound. We take advantage of sound checks too,
That's interesting. I imagine you developed, especially with these three the different cues on stage. What's that like to develop? How long does it take to kind of have that communication on stage where you kind of know what everyone's thinking?
It takes a while. I've had it with Ray because, of course, I've been playing with Ray for a long time. But I played with this guy from this band, Osabisa, and he was a lot older than me, and he always called it like telepathy. He was this Nigerian guy. And it's so true. Like a lot, I can tell you 9 times out of 10, I know when those guys are going to be coming out of their solos or something, you know. I still pay attention, but 9 times out of 10, I feel, okay, he's ready to get out of it in a good way. You know what I mean?
I'm curious because you've worked with, especially with one of the members a while. What's one thing that, as you look at the band, that each member brings that really no one else could do, as far as, because it makes LaMP such a unique project in that sense?
Well, for me, like Scott, he's like we're getting a little overdubs with our boy Ciro, and he goes, "Boy, you already got percussion on there," you know, because Ciro's the percussionist. Because Scott is very percussive and does these little lines that nobody else does. He's not like, you know, just, you know, wailing away just a wail or something. So that's really important for me. Tasteful guitar playing is like really important to me. So, you know, and then with Ray, he just lays it down. He's playing left hand bass, and it's real simple. And we, you know, I don't know if you're aware of Tony that passed, but he was in the Trey band. So we model the bass from him, the way he would play it or something. And then so Ray's got a lot going on, left hand bass and the keys, and he's always pushing it, and it's cool. He's trying to, you know, working the jams and pushing it forward and coming up with some creative stuff, and really melodic too.
Being a drummer, do you remember when you first started playing? How did it begin, and how did you know that the drumming was what you wanted to really focus on? How old were you? I'm curious.
I was a kid. I joined the drum and bugle corps when I was like 10 or 11. See, there was a drum and bugle corps that was up the street from my house, and I lived in this town, New Bedford, Mass. And Acushnet, Mass was like, I live in Acushnet, but it was like, you know, bordering each other. And I would go and I would just hang out there. And they used to rehearse outside in the parking lot. I live in these factories. It was the Titleist golf ball factory. They used to rehearse. So I'd go over there with my sticks and stuff. And the drum instructors, "Oh, you play drums, you should come play," you know. But I thought I was like too young. I think you had to be 12 to join, and they let me join early. So that was my early experiences with that, you know. And I remember sitting and then you would do these, like in the summer you do these competitions. I think they're like, I forget how long it is, 30 minutes. You go out and do all these drills, and you know you get score points, or they take points off, whatever. But I remember making up my own thing with that, you know, at home in my head in the kitchen, you know, in the morning on my drumsticks. But then I got a paper route and I got a drum set, and then that was all. Once I get the drum set, I sort of lost interest in the drum corps, and I was ready to get in a rock band.
Were there that makes sense. Was there any certain bands that you were kind of trying to emulate the drummers?
Yeah, I mean, God, I grew up in that fertile area of the Beatles and all that stuff. And I remember the people would tease me in 8th grade, like, "Who's your favorite drummer?" And I always go, "Ginger Baker." But he was like, you listen back, and he was really tasteful, you know, got all those guys, Mitch Mitchell, oh my God. And you just go from there, you know what I mean? But
how long did it take to develop? Because I think a lot of drummers that I've spoken to are, in a way, replicating what they grew up listening to, but then eventually they find their own style and their own voice, so to speak, with the drums. How long did it take to kind of have that you had your own style to your drumming?
Oh God, you know, it's interesting because I was definitely like, I can remember my dad's. I go back to my parents' house, and I'm sleeping in my bedroom that I used to play my drums in, and I remember listening to a Whole Lot of Lovin' by Zeppelin, and that album really affects me and still does, because it swings, because John Bonham swung so hard, you know. So that stayed with me and still is with me. But then from there, I got involved with this. That's how I got to Vermont with this band Zebra. This guy, percussionist, sax player from this band Osibisa, which I was a fan from. They were from London, and by playing with him, it was like Afro beat, Afro rock, and I really learned a lot. And I really felt like I had a real kind of knack for that kind of style. Hence how I got the audition.
Yeah.
And that's still in my playing. It really changed my playing a lot. So I always say it was a cross between John Bonham and Afrobeat. And cool. If you listen to kind of Fela Kutte's sons, that's kind of what they do, and they're rocking it out more or something. And then there's so many different players. You get influenced by so much. You know, it's amazing.
I would imagine. What does LaMP, this project, allow you to kind of express that, I don't know, other projects in the past haven't, that you're able to, this really allows you to do something?
Well, you know, first we stretch it out, but it's still within certain amount of realm, you know, and the groove, it's always groove heavy, which is important for me. And where, and it's still songs, but then you go off and jam or whatever you want to call it. But it really expresses me as a drummer, and I think it really showcases my style, and hence sometimes because I'm bringing in the beats, so it's really in my wheelhouse.
That's very interesting. And then you're in Vermont, and that's where you're based, and a lot of your time has been spent. What do you what's the Vermont musical community like, as far as different people you've worked with? How do you kind of view that scene?
Well, it's not a huge scene, but there's a couple of great studios here. I work with Ben Collette. He worked with Trey for a long time. He has the Tank. I'm up there doing sessions, and we did that last the album we did last year with LaMP there.
Yeah.
And then it's funny, and then like that guy Mahali from Twiddle, he lives up the street, up down here around here, and then these other guys are tucked away.
That's interesting. Small, but there's a lot of that's interesting.
Yeah, and then we play with Bob Wagner, who is he plays with Mike. He's in Mike Gordon's band now, and I've been playing with him for years. So it's like this week I'm playing, and then Grippo, who played with the horn section back the early days of Fish, and then with the Trey band, Jennifer, it's Friday night. So people come and go. Like Jennifer lives in Nashville, but she's coming up. So it's like anything. When I lived in Boston, I did the same thing. I had like 3 little gigs a week, and I would be like all these different people. And then next week with our band LaMP. So you get the calendar out, and I'm not available because I'm out with LaMP. That's my high priority. But if I'm home, I'm playing with different people, and it's a blast. And I have a little trio we play once a month, and we all write these rock songs, more vocal stuff, and we do that once or twice a month. So you keep yourself busy, and then and like getting sessions. I love playing on people's records, and I just finished this guy. I did some stuff with this blues guy a couple weeks ago, and hope for the best.
That's right. Is the new record done? I know you talked about next year coming out.
Yeah, it's pretty much done. It's gonna be mixed, and we got our buddy Cyril's going to play some percussion on it. Matter of fact, I'm just listening to stuff he did on one of the songs now, so we'll get it mixed, and then we'll get it ready. Because once you get it ready and you get it on record, everybody's putting out records now, so the waiting list. I remember years ago putting out a little single and it was easy. Now everybody's putting out vinyl again, so you got to wait in line, which is fine. But
yes, the Russ Lawton of LaMP. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. It's Saturday, July 25th. LaMP performing at the Great South Bay Music Festival, and we look forward to new music coming in 27 as you wrap up that record. I can't wait to see you at the festival. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, please say hi. Thank you so much, man. Take care.